Okay, good morning, you beautiful New Zealanders. Today we're going to look at an interview between Jack Tame and Mika Waitiri, a former Labour Party minister and Te Pāti Maori candidate, and lawyer Liam Hehia, a National Party member. It's very interesting to watch this. The interview is a left-wing pro-Maorification feast. Jack Tame is relaxed. He regularly laughs and jokes around. This is a total contrast to his interview with Winston Peters just before the last election last year. You remember that. Anyway, let's dive in and dissect this interview because, man, there's plenty in this.
Nicola Willis has delivered her first budget, including income tax cuts, with forecasts for the coming years indicating the next few budgets could be very tight indeed. Given the occasion, we wanted to bring back the Q&A panel. National Party member, lawyer, commentator, Renaissance man Liam here, and former Labour minister and Te Pāti Maori candidate, consultant and member of Te Pāti Maori, Mika Waitiri. Kia ora kōrua.
Tēnā koe, Jack.
Liam, let's start with you. First of all, this budget has been criticised from the economic right for perceptions over high spending and borrowing. So what do you make of the budget, Mika? Yeah, I mean, the left have, I suppose, by contrast, been saying it's a savage cut on public services. What do you think?
100%. But it's also a savage cut on Māori initiatives that have been fought over many, many years, Jack.
Okay, so straight away, Mika just launches into what is the number one weapon of Maori activists, which is complaint. And they'll complain about everything, even if there's absolutely no substance to what they're complaining about. And what they do is they are sort of operating with what we would call the water on the stone, hollowing out the stone strategy, which is that as if you just complain incessantly, but like children whinging and complaining to their parents for a lolly or for something, and eventually the parents just give in. And that's how they've got so far, 50 years since the Treaty of Waitangi Act was enacted. They are just bombarding the Parliament, MPs and the country with complaints. So let's keep going with this.
No, the Māori Health Authority, our health.
Okay, so there's the Maori Health Authority. That's one issue she's bringing up here. And we know about that. They spent $500 million on that. It didn't work. It was a complete flop. The country lost $500 million, $500 million. And it was absolutely nothing to do with Maori health. It was just a grab for wealth and power by Maori activists to try and get buildings and cash into the coffers of the war chest for activist Maori who are trying to take over the country. And of course, Three Waters was the same thing. They tried to get strategic assets into their war chest. They had a good crack at water, because if they could have got water, then they would have got power, because you have to generate power from water. And they could have got geothermal and so on. And so let's see what else she's going to complain about.
Papa Kainga, in a stroke of a couple of months, that's all gone. And that's why you're seeing what you've been seeing around the country with the activation hois, with thousands and thousands are turning up. And, so the reaction is what you're seeing on the streets by Māori them rising up. And, of course, the hui taumata that you also had at Omahu, where iwi leaders are saying, look, we've got to depend on ourselves.
Yeah.
We have to come together.
Okay, so iwi leaders are saying we've got to depend on ourselves. That's a big fat porky, because they don't ever depend upon themselves. They depend completely on the government, on handouts. They've depended upon settlements to buy businesses. They've been around for 180 years since the treaty, and the only way this is not all Maori, but this is, of course, because there's some very hardworking, amazing, awesome Maori in this country. But when Maori were given settlement money, they went out and bought businesses, hotels, tourist operations, supermarkets, and so on. They were allowed to set them up as charities, so they don't pay tax. Then what happened is that they eventually have built quite a big Maori economy worth $70 billion. So, it's time Maori started to pay for themselves. She says, we want to start looking after ourselves. Well, please do so. We'd love you to. Build all your Maori houses. We'd love you to look after all your children. We'd love you to eliminate all poverty in Maoridom. You've got the money to do it in your $70 billion economy. Why don't you do it? If you don't like the hospital system, Why don't you get your own Maori doctors and your own Maori nurses and your own Maori hospitals? You can afford to build them now. It only costs $1 billion to build a hospital. Well, go for it. And then you can do whatever you want. No complaints.
Yeah.
We have to do things differently, but not just for Māoridom, for the nation.
Yeah, well,
So here we go. So they say we're not doing it just for Maori, we're doing it for the nation. So the idea is coming across, and this is consistent with most activist rhetoric, and that is that they're doing this for the betterment of the whole of New Zealand. They're doing it for everyone, they say, which is just spin, because everyone does not want tribal rule. Let me tell you that fair and square. We do not want tribal rule, and so they're trying to put ideas into the heads of the naive and the silly in New Zealand, who would think, oh yeah, okay, let's give tribal rule a whirl. Let's give it a go. See what happens. By then it'll be too late. We'll be Zimbabwe and we'll never recover.
I'm going to ask you about the hui that's been held over the last couple of days, as well as Te Pāti Māori's
choices to give tax cuts over pharmac drugs. When it comes to health, of course, from a Māori perspective, it's the health authority, because Māori are still dying 7 years younger than non-Māori. And
okay, so there's a big clanger. She says that Māori are dying 7 years younger than non-Māori. Well, what's the truth about that? Well, the truth is that Asians are living longer than Europeans. So what does that tell you? It's nothing to do with racism. It has to do with lifestyle choices. If Māori had good lifestyle choices, stop drinking Coke and fizzy drinks and alcohol and smoking and not exercising and living anybody, not just Māori, anybody who lives an unbalanced life, you're not going to live so long. You're going to cark it early. But she's into the old victim card. Oh, we're all dying earlier. No responsibility, taking no responsibility for their health.
Hear the minister say when Māori turn up at AE, they're not turning up because of their ethnicity. Now, you can flip that on the side and say, well, then why are we dying 7 years younger?
So there's another thing. So the reason that Maori are dying earlier is because they don't want to go to hospital because they say it's a racist place to go. Well, that's their problem. If they think it's a racist place to go, then just die early. Don't go. It's up to you. If you've got medical issues, go to the place where you're going to get help. And if your fear of going to a hospital is so great you'd rather die, then really, you're stupid.
The system hasn't delivered. And so this is why...
Okay, here's another big one. It's not the system that hasn't delivered. It's Maori who have not delivered for themselves. It's nothing to do with the system. Lawrie Knight's article in the description of this video goes through that. Maori health outcomes are absolutely nothing to do with racism, colonialism, or anything else. They have to do with Maori choices. That's it.
Why you're seeing so many rising, because we don't believe that what the government's doing is actually taking into cognizance the developments over the years for Māori to put up their hand to say, we want to be part of the solution. But being cut out of anything, it just goes to the...
Well, if Maori want to be part of the solution, then they have to prove themselves to be worthy of being part of the solution. If they top the negative social statistics in the whole country, obesity, violence, crime, suicide, animal cruelty, child abuse, if they top the statistics for all those negative social statistics, then, they don't have any credibility to lead anything, surely.
Of why our young people, as you're seeing around the country, are rallying to say, this is not on.
But I want to talk about the other big event on Thursday, of course. The Toi Tū Te Tiriti rallies and protests drew thousands of people around the country. Were they effective?
Absolutely, because of the people that turned up. Māori, led by Rangatahi, I must acknowledge that.
Okay, Rangatahi apparently is young people. So she's saying they were a huge success because young people turned up. You know what? I would love to interview all the young people who are at these rallies and ask them about the treaty, ask them why they're actually protesting. And I can guarantee that 99.999% of them would have not a clue as to why they're there. They're there only because they've been told to be there, and there's a bit of a frenzy being whipped up by radical activists, and that's why they are there.
It's our tangata tiriti, our tangata pacifica, people who feel marginalised. This is a rally that actually everyone is welcome to. Remember that.
Okay, same old line. Everybody's welcome to. Anybody who feels marginalised, you come along, because Maori want to be seen as the leaders of these things.
Of the back of the one that was called in December. Normally, we wait for these rallies until election year. The fact that they are happening so regularly, well before the election year, is a signal where Māori them must stand. And it's like I said, it's been led by our kohanga generation, and there's a lot of work that's going amongst that cohort to. The
kohanga generation, that is the people who've been immersed in Maori only schools.
Awareness, and I reckon in 2026 you're going to get a different voter turnout from Māori.
What do you think, man?
Look, there's no doubt that TPM is really on a roll and has been for a while. I think the danger for them is that...
Yeah, they've really been on a roll, all right? It's a sausage roll.
They've had been treated with kid gloves by the media for a bit, and it's led to a tolerance for kind of outrageous statements. But those outrageous...
That's an incredible understatement.
They generate buzz, they generate media. So actually the bigger problem for them is... I
think that is the reason that the Maori Party make outrageous statements regularly, is because that's the only way they can get attention in the media. They do outrageous things, say outrageous things, because they don't have any policy. They don't have anything of substance.
So Te Pāti Māori has issued what it says is a declaration of political independence. Te Ngāta o Te Iwi Māori. It wants to establish a separate parliament.
Yes.
So what does that actually mean?
It's not new, Jack, if you go back to that.
Okay, you're going to listen very, very carefully here, because this is where you get some really interesting meat get thrown into the ring.
90s, the first hui at Waipatu, and then of course at Papawai, both of my marae in Kahungunu, where the whole notion, and that was in response to the land losses that Māori them at the time were having. So she says alternative Maori governments first started in 1890. No, they didn't. Maori started rebelling against the British Crown. They were breaching the treaty in doing that, and this is what this is today with the call for an alternative government for the Maori Party. It's a breach of the treaty. Hey, it's time we put our hand up to seek what Article 2 said, which is our self-determination, our ability to be practice Māori mana motuhake.
Okay, this is a huge part in the video, because this is really the nub of the issue. This is the core of the issue. If you have a look at Article 2 in the treaty, it says, and I'll show it here, it says, the Queen confirms and guarantees to the chiefs and the tribes and to all the people of New Zealand the possession of their land, dwellings and property. Now, the English understood that word possession to mean ownership. The chiefs in 1840 understood that word to be ownership. In other words, all the British were doing was saying, you know what, we're going to guarantee that the ownership of your property is secure. Nobody's going to steal your land and possessions of you. We as the British can guarantee that. That was all it meant. But activists over the last 50 years have twisted that word to mean total sovereignty, complete sovereignty. So it now reads, the Queen confirms and guarantees to the chiefs and the tribes and to all the people of New Zealand the complete sovereignty over their lands, dwellings and property. Now, in the description, that is completely wrong. That's just fraud. That's just straight out fraud, that reinterpretation of that word. And the word possession comes from the Maori phrase Tino Rangatiratanga. Manu Matahaki is the same idea. It's total sovereignty. And so there are so many problems with that interpretation. And if you want to really get the lowdown on that interpretation and how it's been twisted over these last 45 years, then go to the description of this video and look for the paper that I've written on Tino Rangatiratanga, and it explains it all. So please go there, because this manipulation, this fraudulent twisting of Article 2 is how Maori have built a platform to say they have a right to rule New Zealand. And that is the epicenter of that twisting. So go and have a look.
So The call for a Māori parliament isn't a new notion, but it flies in the face of what we're seeing with the destructing of all those initiatives that I've mentioned earlier, the Māori Health Authority, the papakainga approach, our commitment to our reo in public spaces.
That's another big thing that we haven't actually mentioned is they're saying that their commitment to having Te Reo Maori language signs, Maori road signs, Maori signage on everything everywhere. But you know what that is? That's actually, they're saying that all of this has been cut out by the present government. But really what that is grooming the population, getting it ready for tribal rule. It has nothing to do with reviving the language or preserving Maori language. It is simply moving us by increment gradually towards tribal rule. And so they are plastering New Zealand with Maori words everywhere in documents, and a lot of shops and a lot of businesses have bought into this foolishly, and they're starting to Maorify. You see a lot of the Warehouse, Pack and Save, and many other businesses have bought into this Maorification, this Te Reoizing of New Zealand, and they don't know, they don't understand where it's going and what is the end game here. So they've been brainwashed, and they have succumbed to the brainwashing by doing that.
Those are all been undermined by this coalition government.
So you've been at the second Huia Motu at Omahu, Marae and Heretaunga and Hastings over the last couple of days. So and you've been discussing this alternate parliament conception. Just in really practical terms, what would it involve?
So it will be a different approach to what we're accustomed to Western government.
Okay, it's going to be different from Western government. What can that only be? We've got democracy now, so it's going to be an alternative to democracy. What can that only mean? It must be tribal rule. That's what it's going to be. So if you love tribal rule, just get behind all of this and watch what happens.
It will be consensus making. It will involve whānau.
Okay, it's going to be consensus making, so it's going to involve everybody's consensus. How are we going to do that? Well, already in a democracy, we have consensus. That's what we have elections for, because the people get to decide who they want in power and who they want out of power. But this is a new form of consensus. How are they going to do that when you have a whole lot of chiefs running New Zealand? How are they going to get consensus on that? Do you know what this is doing? This is taking us back to pre-1840 New Zealand with tribal rule and chiefs warring and fighting. And you know what? If we keep this going, we're headed to be the Zimbabwe of the South Pacific. We're heading to the bottom of the barrel fast. And people don't realise this, what's going on and how this actually is progressing.
Hapu marae. So it will be a different arrangement than we've been accustomed to in the...
It's going to be a very different arrangement that we're accustomed to. We like democracy, and we're having tribal rule forced on us.
Country where you would obviously have trust in those that represent you, but also there will be an obligation on those that believe in that movement that you've also got to play your part. So there's a two-way street in what...
Okay, we have a two-way street in our democracy at the moment. Government tells us what to do and we do it. That's basically how it is. They make the rules and the laws and we do our best to obey them. So there's nothing new in that.
I understand, but at the moment, it's just putting it out there as a different alternative to this Western model that we currently have, which is very adversarial.
It's putting it out there for everybody to consider. And I suppose there's some silly, stupid people around who just go, yeah, let's do it. Let's try tribal rule. Let's give it a whirl. And she's saying that, you know, our Western system is very adversarial. She means we're doing a lot of fighting like we are right now. But man, I tell you what, it's nothing compared to what it was like pre-1840. The Maori population, 1800 to 1840, went down from 150,000 to 75,000. And why? Because Maori were killing each other. And we're going straight back into that, and they're dragging the whole country with them. Do you really want that?
Where you're either on the left or you're on the right. You know, some of, oh God, I've coined a phrase, some of my best friends are on the right. And so, but we play
Liam's blushing, Mecca. Liam's blushing.
We play the...
I want you to notice all the laughter and the fun here, because this is a left-wing feast. This is a left-wing little party that's happening. And I'm going to show you in a minute the difference between this and when Winston Peters was interviewed just before the election, and how Jack Tane was like a lion on the loose, wanting to absolutely destroy Winston Peters because he was right-wing.
So,
Mr. Peters.
So some reporters meant to be ready by August, and it's not there, and that's my number one priority.
I would have thought, given your opposition to co-governance, it would be.
Don't show your gross inexperience.
Mr. Peters, if you're so opposed to co-governance,
don't show your gross inexperience.
Why did your
everybody, even the Prime Minister at the time, admits she didn't show me. And you're on the show trying to tell people I did know.
You see, you're putting this responsibility on other people. You were the Deputy Prime Minister. You were arguably
move on.
one of New Zealand's most experienced politicians.
You're not going to win this campaign.
What does it say about the aptitude and competence of a serious minister,
Jack,
if they would not chase up something of that significance?
I know you're desperate, but you're not going to stop this surge in our campaign now with lies and deceit.
Mr. Peters,
I'm sad to see that you're part of it now.
Mr. Peters, I think we all understand the tactic. You come in here, you huff and puff and hurl insults around. I get it. For people at home, it might be entertaining. These are serious times worthy of serious leadership. If you are unable to answer straight questions about your policy, your competence, and your integrity, that's on you.
The Hey Pua matter has been out there for months. It's all been answered. No one's arguing excepting Jack Tame and TVNZ. What a waste of taxpayers' money you are.
Winston Peters, if you were so opposed to co-governance, why did your government oversee the earliest stages of co-governance provisions in Three Waters?
Oh, here we go. This is amazing. We've got a crisis in Hastings. People are dying, and people are looking at the provisioning water around this country. It turned out from being an investigation into serious water deficiencies into an ownership takeover, clear as daylight.
So why didn't you stop it when you were in government?
Because it wasn't provisioned in that way when it first was started.
Here's a report from the Infrastructure Commission in 2020, when you were still in government. Quote, the design of a new framework for the water sector.
What date is it?
2020. August 2020.
August 2020.
September 2020.
Oh, September 2020. We're all out campaigning. No one's seeing it because Cabinet has risen.
But you'll see if you allow me to read the quote. Clearly these conversations are already happening.
Cabinet has risen. We're off to an election.
The design of a new framework for the water sector provides a rare opportunity for Te Ao Māori to be embedded at a foundational level in the new utility organisations, e.g. boards of directors. Wouldn't a concerned, competent, attentive minister have intervened?
If that was the matter that was being decided on then, that is the election period. We're all off campaigning. And, as I recall, I think at that time we were in lockdown. Isn't it? No, we were in lockdown. I'm forced to go back to the beach. I can't even do anything, can't even campaign. Don't you remember that?
One would think that as Deputy Prime Minister in Cabinet, you would be attentive to those things.
You've just been caught out.
So, Mr. Peters, when it comes to co-governance, you've said one thing, even though you were in the room when He Pua was commissioned. The same applies to funding. So in the 2020
you lied about
campaign,
that, and you're lying about this.
In the 2020 election campaign, which you are clearly recalling well, you said, quote, we can't just go on running the country for the big end of town. 3 years on, look at your party's donations, shows you've taken almost $900,000 in big donations this year alone, including hundreds of thousands of dollars in donations from some of the richest people in New Zealand. What changed?
Oh, this is amazing. Jack, take your dirt and go somewhere else. I'll tell you this, we're getting less money than the Greens.
$900,000?
We are getting less money than the Greens. Excuse me, you know that. We're getting one for every...
So, Jack Tame has been converted to the Maori religion here. It's all happy and fun and wonderful. And anybody who's right-wing and gets in the ring with Jack Tame now, and if you're right-wing, you're going to get mauled. But these guys, look at that. Look at the fun they're having.
And not the board. And really, it's about our nationhood. Where's Aotearoa New Zealand want to be? And all we're saying is the Indigenous people here, we've got some ideas.
Okay, there's a great big clanger. We as the Indigenous people, we've got some ideas. No, you're not Indigenous. You ate the Moriori. You ate and killed the Moriori who were here before you. And there's plenty of evidence, actually, that there was people here before the Moriori even. So you know what? I'm sorry, Mika, but we're all settlers here. We're all exactly the same. We're all New Zealanders, and we shouldn't be trying to have this one-upmanship with we're Indigenous and we're better and so we have a right to rule and reign. No, I'm sorry. Just drop that, because it's nonsense.
We also want to put our hand up to lead.
Yeah.
Okay, there it is again. We want to put our hand up to lead. Mika, you've got to have credibility to lead. When Maori are leading the country with all the statistics and being the best at everything, no Maori in prison, no Maori suicide, no Maori obesity, Maori looking after themselves, Maori taking care of themselves, Maori building their own houses, Maori building their own hospitals, using their 70 billion to get themselves organised. When there's no Maori in hospital because they're so healthy and wonderful, when you lead by example, then yeah, you lead. But until then, I wouldn't be going spouting out how wonderful Maori are and how they're ready to lead until they really prove themselves they've got credibility to lead. Otherwise, this is just a joke. Mika, come on.
Liam.
So I am a Te Pāti Māori critic, but I just wanted to clear one thing up. Over the last week, I had people contacting me saying, isn't this treason? Isn't this sedition? And it just...
Now, he's talking about Waititi's wife, Kiri. He's talking about John Tamahiri and their threats that they've made to replace the government, take down the government and try and unite all Maori to be a powerful force to overtake the government. Now, he's saying it's not treason. Well, honestly, he's living in a parallel universe.
When are we going to wake the fuck up and realise that continuing to fuck around in a system that was designed to fuck us up is going to keep fucking us up? Over 180 fucking years, we've subscribed to a system that treats us like fucking second-class citizens in our own country. It's never changed. We think it's got better and it hasn't. And every little incremental benefit we get, we think, getting closer and closer to mana motuhake. We're full of shit. Mana motuhake doesn't lie in that place and it never ever will. But at what point do we fucking decide that enough is enough? Investing in a system that's feasting off our failure is enough. When do we stop talking about Tino Rangatiratanga? When do we stop talking about sovereignty? I am the sovereign. When do we start acting in that? When do we start moving from the attitude of I am the sovereign to behaving in the attitude of I am the sovereign? Continuing to fuck around in this bullshit system is making us beg. We're still begging for Pākehā to recognise us. What the fuck? We're just begging all the time. Pākehā, please see me and my Māoritanga and my tangata whenuatanga. Please give me some money. Please recognise how much you've hurt me. And please recognise how much land you've stolen. And please, can you just give me some money back? When are we going to stop asking for permission? We have to start fucking asserting our sovereignty, acting in our sovereignty. It was never ever taken away from us. But we're behaving like it was. We're continuously behaving like our sovereignty was stripped from us and it never was. You just imagine, just take one fucking minute of your day to imagine if we were all on the same page. Not for my own little iwi or my own little hapu or my own little whānau. If we happen to be, just imagine, all on the same page for the sake of all of our mokopuna. Māori mokopuna. Can you imagine the might and the power that we would have? We could overthrow any government.
If he can't see all that talk that we've seen on these videos and everybody's seen the footage, if that's not treason, then what is, truly? So he's also delusional.
It isn't, all right? It just isn't. It's no more than the kingitanga is treason or sedition. There's a tradition of it, all right? But first of all...
So he's saying that even having a Maori king is just the same sort of thing. Just bat it away and don't worry about it because it's a nothing. No, it's something serious. We've never seen this. I've been a Kiwi all my life. And I have never seen anything like this. He's saying, oh, this happens all the time.
There's no suggestion, as far as I can see, that there's any incitement towards rebellion against the government of New Zealand. It is a organic advocacy organ of government. You know, it's the type of thing that is actually a genuine expression of self-determination within a legal framework.
Oh, it's a genuine expression of self-determination in a legal framework. No, it was not, Liam. It was treason. The other thing here is, how come Jack Tame's not jumping on this? He's not stupid. Well, the reason is because he's bought into the Maori religion. He's the latest convert. And so he's going along with all this, Jack Tame.
So, look, there are lots of things that I will happily call Te Pāoti Māori out on, and especially some of the zanier statements. But I actually think that, there's a bit of overblown reaction to something that's actually quite a normal political development for an...
What Kerry said, Waititi's wife, and what John Tamahiri is saying, this is all normal. This is just like going down the dairy to get a bottle of milk. It's no problem. Well, I'm telling you, Liam, you are completely off the planet in your assessment of the situation.
Indigenous people.
Hey, thank you so much. It's really, really good to chat. Great to have you both here for our panel this morning. Mika Whaitiri and Liam here.
Please share this video with everyone everywhere. The mainstream media should be reporting on the issues I am raising in these videos, but they're not. Why aren't they? Well, they're corrupt. Why are they corrupt? They are collaborating with Maori activists. There's no doubt about that. In the final analysis, the people of New Zealand, that's us, have ultimate power, not the politicians. Did you know that? The people can kick out the people in power and they can put them into power. How are we going to do that? Well, awareness is the key to change. If enough people in New Zealand become aware of the issues I am raising, we can save this beautiful country. So share these videos everywhere so that come the next election, we can vote the right people in and kick out the people who are destroying New Zealand.